I'm Caroline Hayes, 31 years old, and until that Christmas morning, I was the one my family counted on when the bills piled up or the car broke down. I paid for weddings, tuition, even mortgage payments without expecting anything back. But that morning, my sister Lisa stood in front of the fireplace, smiling like it was just another holiday, and said, "We had a family vote. Caroline's no longer one of us." I didn't say a word at first. I just walked over to the Christmas tree and placed a red folder beneath it, wrapped in gold ribbon with all the truth inside. By the time breakfast was over, the whole house would be quiet for the first time in years. Before I go any further, drop a comment below and let me know where you're tuning in from. And if you've ever reached your breaking point with family, go ahead and tap that like and subscribe button. I was born and raised just outside of Hartford, Connecticut, in a neighborhood where folks mowed their own lawns and borrowed sugar from next door. My parents, Marilyn and Tom, believed in hard work, respect, and never airing dirty laundry in public. Dad worked in construction until his back gave out, and Mom taught second grade at the same school I attended. It wasn't a life of luxury, but it was solid. We had potlucks in the backyard, fireflies in July, and a Christmas tree that reached the ceiling even when the presents didn't. I was the oldest of three. Lisa came next, 3 years younger, always with a bounce in her step and a smile that could charm just about anyone. Then came Jason, our baby brother, who spent most of his high school years trying to find something that stuck sports music, a handful of business ideas that never really made it off the ground. Things shifted the year I turned 16. Dad left. One day he was there at the dinner table. The next he was gone off to Florida with someone he met at physical therapy. The divorce was messy. Child support showed up on paper but barely made it to our bank account. Mom did her best, but something in her hardened after that. She remarried within 2 years a man named Gary who sold insurance and mostly kept to himself. If he had opinions, I never heard them. Mom used to say, "We stick together no matter what." I believed her. Maybe that's why I never questioned how things turned out. Lisa went to a private college with no plan for how to pay it back. Jason floated from one part-time job to the next, always with a new idea that needed just a little help to get going. And me, I got myself through college with scholarships and worked 2 jobs. I graduated with a business degree and landed my first job at a financial firm in Boston. I was 22, making more money than I thought possible, and within 3 weeks, I got the first call from home. Lisa's car had broken down. "It's the transmission," Mom said, and with her school bills this month, the sentence just hung there. I wired the money that same night. After that, the calls came more often. Jason needed help with tuition for a tech boot camp. Mom and Gary were behind on property taxes, Lisa's rent, Jason's credit card, always with promises to repay, but none of it ever came back. When I visited home, the house looked nicer than I remembered: new couch, bigger TV, even a kitchen remodel. "We got a great deal," Mom would say. With everything we've been through, we needed something nice. I told myself it was okay. They were family. I could wait on a down payment for a condo. I could skip the vacation. I had a good job after all. That's what I kept telling myself. But by my 29th birthday, I'd spent more than most people earn in a year, and I had nothing to show for it. No home of my own, no savings. Just a long list of transactions and a growing ache that maybe love and loyalty weren't the same thing after all. The breaking point didn't come with a bang. It came quietly, like a truth I'd always known but never said out loud. And that Christmas morning when they smiled and voted me out of their lives like it was nothing was the moment I finally realized something had to change, and that's when I reached for the red folder. I didn't flinch when Lisa said it, not when she smiled like it was some kind of announcement, not when Jason stared at his shoes, not even when Mom dabbed at her eyes like she was already mourning something. "We had a family vote," Lisa said. "Caroline's no longer one of us." They all just sat there looking at me like I was supposed to pack up my things and quietly leave before the cinnamon rolls cooled. I didn't say a word. I reached for my leather bag, pulled out the red folder, and walked to the Christmas tree. I placed it beneath the lowest branch right next to a gold-wrapped box with Jason's name on it. Nobody moved. "What is that?" Lisa asked. Her voice sounded different now. I looked at Mom. Her hands were folded neatly in her lap, but her eyes had gone flat. "Go ahead," I said. "Open it." No one reached for it, so I did. I pulled out the first page, a spreadsheet. Neatly printed rows and columns, every transaction dated and labeled. 7 years, I said. $253,842. Jason let out a small noise, not quite a laugh, more like a cough that caught in his throat. "That's not possible," he said. "You're exaggerating." I laid out the bank statements. Each one had yellow highlights, transfers, checks, auto payments. 20,000, I said, tapping one page to you, Jason. "For the business, the one you never registered, the one you promised would start paying me back in 6 months. He opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. Nothing came out. "And the car," I continued. "The BMW, the one registered under your name, the one parked at your friend's place so I wouldn't see it." Lisa sat straighter on the couch. "You had us investigated. I had questions," I said. "I got answers." I turned to her. 35,000 for the wedding, 15,000 for your medical bills. "But not medical, right? Not the kind of bills insurance doesn't cover." "Cosmetic surgery and the vacation property in Maine that showed up on the deed 3 days after you told me you might lose your house." Her cheeks flushed deep red. "You're out of your mind." I set down the photos. The house, the new deck, the welcome mat with her and Greg's initials. Mom hadn't said a word. I looked at her next. "The casino visits caught me by surprise," I said. "Mohegan Sun, high-stakes slots, thousands gone in one weekend. I thought the money was for property taxes." Her hand went to her neck. "How dare you? Receipts," I said. "ATM withdrawals, loyalty statements, all of it." "Gary?" I turned to him. "Did you know?" His head turned toward her slowly. "Karen. Gambling." She didn't answer. "She lost over 40,000 just last year," I said. Gary sat back, staring at the carpet. I pulled out a letter, cream-colored paper, neatly folded. "This is from my attorney. It outlines repayment terms, interest rates, timelines, fair ones." Jason shifted in his seat. Lisa looked like she might lunge across the room. "Attorney," she said. "You got a lawyer involved? I've declined to press charges for now," I said. "But I could." "You're unbelievable," Lisa snapped. "We've done everything for you. Everything." "What exactly?" I asked. She didn't answer. "We're family," Mom finally said like it was a trump card. "You made that clear this morning," I replied, "when you voted me out." I reached into the folder one last time and pulled out a small black device. "This is a recording," I said, "from September 10th. I arrived early that day. I pressed play. The voices played clearly. Lisa's laugh, Mom's voice saying I was lonely, Jason joking about the payment plan. To Caroline, Mom said on the tape, the gift that keeps on giving. When the tape ended, no one spoke. Gary looked from one face to another. "Is this true?" No one answered. I closed the folder. I thought I was helping. I thought I was supporting the people I loved. I didn't see it for what it was, not until now. Lisa crossed her arms. "You can't prove any of this." "I can," I said. "And I have." Jason stood up. "Look, Caroline, we messed up, but we do appreciate what you've done. We love you." "Love isn't what that sounded like I said." He glanced at Lisa. "That wasn't my idea. That vote, it was hers." "It doesn't matter whose idea it was," I said. "You all agreed." Mom leaned forward, her voice soft now. "Sweetheart, we can talk this through. Families fight, but we come back together. The quote you always use, I said. Blood is thicker than water. That's not even the real version. The full saying is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. It means the opposite of what you've always claimed. Chosen bonds are stronger than family by blood. I stood. You have two choices, I said. Option 1, sign the agreements, commit to therapy, take responsibility. Option 2, I file lawsuits, pursue fraud claims, recover what I can through the court. You'd take your own family to court? Mom whispered. According to you, I said I don't have a family. I placed the folder back in my bag. You have until New Year's Day to decide. My attorney will be in touch. Lisa shot to her feet. You think this makes you better than us? You're pathetic. You don't have a life. You have spreadsheets. You're wrong, I said. I have something now I didn't have before. Boundaries. I turned to leave, then paused. The gifts I gave you, they're real. No strings. I just wanted you to remember what real generosity looks like. Jason's voice came behind me. Caroline, wait, can we just talk about this? I looked back one last time. We're done talking, I said. The folder said everything that needed saying. I stepped outside. The cold hit immediately. I kept walking. And that's when I heard the door open again. The door creaked open behind me, and I heard Lisa's voice call out across the porch. You can't just drop a bomb like that and walk away. She stepped outside without a coat, her arms folded tight over her chest, slippers darkening against the snow. Her face was red, not from the cold. I turned around. I didn't drop anything I said. I showed you the truth. Jason followed her out next, followed by Mom and Gary. They stood there in a half circle like they didn't know what to do now that I wasn't inside their story anymore. Let's just talk, Jason said, holding his hands up a little. It's freezing out here. Come back in. I'm not interested in another conversation where I get talked over or blamed for keeping records, I said. You had your say. It's always about money with you, Mom said. Her voice was soft and brittle like she was hoping I'd still be the one to bend, keeping track of every dollar, every little thing. This isn't about money, I said. It's about respect and honesty and the fact that you've treated those things like they cost too much. Lisa stepped forward. So you're going to blow up the family over misunderstandings? No, I said. You already did that. Every time you lied, every time you spent money, you said you didn't have. Every time you decided I didn't matter except for what I could give you, made that choice. There was a pause, and then Mom's tone shifted again. We didn't mean what we said in there. It was the heat of the moment. You know how Lisa gets sometimes. Oh, please, Lisa said, turning to her. You were right there with me. Don't pin this on me. You said it first, Mom snapped. Jason took a step toward me. Look, the car thing I was going to tell you, it just got complicated. It didn't get complicated, I said. It got easy. Easier to keep taking than to come clean. That's not fair. When's the last time you worked more than a few months at a time? When's the last time you followed through on anything you said you'd do? He looked down at the snow. Not everyone can be perfect like you. I'm not perfect. I'm just responsible. There's a difference. Gary hadn't said much, but now he came over slow and careful like someone stepping onto thin ice. I didn't know about the gambling, he said. Karen handled the bills. I thought your help was just now and then. You never asked why there was a new dishwasher or a new dining set or 2 vacations in 1 year, not on a teacher's salary and your spotty work history. He looked genuinely stunned. I guess I didn't want to know. That's on me. Before I could respond, Lisa raised her voice. She can't sue us, right? I mean, she's not actually going to follow through with this. She can, I said, and I will. That was when Mom's face crumpled. The mask slipped, and for the first time she looked scared. I have a problem, she said. It started after your father left. It was just something to do, something to help me feel like I still had control over something. I never meant for it to go that far." Lisa was staring at her. "What about the second mortgage, the one you said was for roof repairs?" Mom shook her head. The silence that followed felt like it belonged to someone else's life. "What now?" Jason finally asked. I reached into my bag and pulled out 5 envelopes. "These have my terms," I said. "Repayment schedules, therapy requirements, boundaries for continuing any relationship with me." Lisa took hers and flipped it over like she expected it to burn her. "And if we agree, then maybe something healthy can start. But it has to be different." Jason opened his. "What if we can't afford the whole amount? The plan's flexible. It accounts for your income. There are options. Community service structured payments, other ways to make it right." Mom held hers carefully like it might fall apart in her hands. "And the therapy part. That's the most important part. Money's money, but trust that's harder to rebuild." They all stood there with their envelopes not quite looking at one another. The same people who'd once felt so loud in every room were suddenly quiet. "I never wanted this," I said. "I wanted a family that supported each other, that showed up for each other because it mattered, not because it benefited them." Jason spoke first. "We do love you, Caroline." "Love without respect isn't love," I said. "It's use. It's convenience. It's silence when someone needs to speak up." I stepped back toward my car. "No contact for 3 months," I said. "After that, we'll see. Not based on words, based on actions." They didn't say anything else. I backed out of the driveway, watching the porch shrink in my mirror, the snow falling quietly, the 4 of them holding their envelopes like they weren't sure what was inside. Halfway home, I realized what the feeling was. It wasn't sadness. It was relief. For the first time in 7 years, I didn't owe anyone anything. It snowed the morning after Christmas, quiet, heavy flakes that blanketed the sidewalks and muted the sounds of the city. I sat on the edge of my bed, still in yesterday's clothes, the red folder resting on the nightstand like it was keeping watch. I hadn't slept much, not because I was upset, at least not in the way they probably imagined. The conversation on the porch kept playing in my head, but it was different now. Less about the words, more about the stillness that followed. I made coffee. I stood by the window. The city was calm. My phone had already lit up twice with missed calls, both from Mom. I didn't call back. Instead, I opened my laptop and typed family financial exploitation support groups in Boston. The search results filled the screen. Some were clinical, some were just message boards. But all of them looked like they belonged to people who might understand. By the end of the day, I had 2 appointments booked, one with a therapist, the other with a law office that specialized in financial abuse and recovery. The first meeting was with Dr. Simmons. Her office was tucked inside a quiet brick building in Cambridge. The waiting room smelled like lavender and clean carpet. I sat on a sofa near the window, my fingers pressed flat against the folder on my lap. When she called my name, I followed her into a small room with soft chairs and a round clock that ticked without rushing. She didn't rush either. I told her everything. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I just laid it all out. The years of giving. The guilt when I said no. The things I overheard. The vote. When I finished, she leaned forward just slightly. "What you're describing," she said, "is financial exploitation. And yes, it's a form of abuse. The fact that it comes from family doesn't make it less real." I didn't say anything right away, but something about hearing her say it out loud calmly, clearly shifted something. Like naming it made it easier to carry. Later that week, I met with Barbara Watkins, the attorney. Her office was in a tall building downtown with glass doors and old elevators. She wore reading glasses and kept a legal pad beside her coffee mug. She flipped through the folder while I sat across from her. She asked a few questions, but mostly just read. After about 15 minutes, she closed it gently and looked up. "This isn't generosity," she said. "This is a financial record of manipulation obtained through pressure, guilt, and misrepresentation. You've been operating as an unauthorized lender for nearly a decade." "Can I get any of it back?" I asked. "Some of it, yes, especially the business loan to your brother, the wedding expenses that were framed as repayable, the mortgage payments. You have documentation, and more importantly, you have patterns. And the emotional part," I asked, "the cost of all the years I didn't live my own life." Her expression softened. "That's harder to prove in court, but it's not impossible to name. And that's what you're doing now, naming it. Drawing the line." We put together a plan. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about the money, not entirely. It was about setting limits, about putting something solid between myself and the place that had swallowed so much of my time and energy. I hired a private investigator, not out of suspicion, but confirmation. What I already knew was one thing, what I could show was another. The report came back 2 weeks later. It was thorough. Mom's gambling habits were worse than I thought. Thousands spent at Mohegan Sun just weeks after she'd said the roof was leaking. Statements showed ATM withdrawals, slot machine activity, even hotel stays. Jason's car, the one he claimed was for business purposes, was stored at a friend's house to avoid being seen. He'd used my investment to buy it outright. The business he talked about never existed on paper. And Lisa, she and Greg had bought a vacation home in Maine. The down payment matched to the dollar what I'd loaned them for a mortgage emergency. None of them had expected me to look. I organized the findings into binders, clean, clear pages, a timeline, transfers, text messages, emails, photos, and then I started writing letters, one to each of them. Not angry, not emotional, just factual, outlining the money, the promises, the consequences. I sent nothing yet. I waited. For a week, my phone was quiet. Then came the messages. First confusion, then guilt, then pressure. "I don't understand why you're acting like this. Let's not make things harder than they have to be. Family is more important than pride." I didn't respond. I met with Dr. Simmons again. We talked about boundaries, about how saying no doesn't require an explanation, about how silence sometimes is protection. 3 days later, I booked a weekend away, a small cabin on a lake 2 hours north. Just me, a paperback novel, and a bag of groceries. There was no reception, no notifications, no requests, just quiet, and air that smelled like pine. And on the second morning, I stood on the porch with a mug of coffee and realized I hadn't thought about them in hours. Not with anger, not with fear, just space. When I got back from the lake, the quiet stayed with me. I unpacked slowly folded laundry, stocked my fridge. The house felt different, lighter somehow. My phone was still full of missed calls and long texts, but I let them sit. I didn't owe anyone a reply. That week, I took the red folder off my bookshelf and cleared a space at my dining table. I laid everything out, spreadsheets, emails, receipts, photos from the investigator, and began sorting them into separate piles. One for Mom and Gary, one for Lisa and Greg, one for Jason. I used binder clips and sticky notes. It took hours, but when I finished, the folder was no longer just evidence. It was preparation. I met with Barbara the next morning. We reviewed the repayment letters, adjusted the language on the therapy requirements, and finalized the delivery plan. This next step, she said, doesn't have to be loud, but it does need to be clear. We chose a date, Christmas Day. Not because of sentiment, because it was the one day I could be sure they'd all be in the same room. No missed appointments, no excuses, just the truth delivered directly. I ordered gifts online, a leather planner for Jason, earrings for Lisa, a resort voucher for Mom and Gary. Nothing over the top, just thoughtful. I wrapped them all myself, tied them with ribbon, and tucked the letters underneath. The folder went back into my messenger bag. 3 days before Christmas, Lisa called. "We're moving dinner to Mom's house instead of ours," she said. "Also, can you bring the ham and the wine?" I said, "Sure." The next few days passed like a held breath. I worked a little, met with Dr. Simmons, once more picked up groceries, wrapped the last gift. I didn't tell anyone what I was planning, not even my closest friend. On Christmas morning, I dressed in a red sweater and slacks, loaded the car, and drove across town. The snow had melted from the sidewalks, but the air still carried the kind of cold that clings to your collar. When I pulled into the driveway, the usual cars were already there: Lisa's white SUV, Jason's dented Honda, Gary's sedan. I knocked once before stepping inside. "There she is," Mom called from the kitchen. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart." She hugged me with practiced warmth. The house was perfectly decorated: wreaths, garlands, scented candles, the kind of festive that cost money I knew they didn't have. "Let me help with those bags," Jason said, reaching for the ham. I handed it over and kept the messenger bag close to my side. Lisa came in from the hallway. "Merry Christmas," she said, kissing the air beside my cheek. "Cute sweater." "I've had it for years," I replied. We sat down for breakfast: bacon, cinnamon rolls, fruit. Everyone talked around me. Travel plans, gift returns, neighborhood drama. No one asked about my job or how I'd been. "These rolls are delicious," I said at one point, cutting the silence. "Madagascar vanilla," Mom said. "Makes all the difference." I nodded. The same day she bought that specialty vanilla, she'd texted me about overdue electric bills. After breakfast, we moved to the living room. The tree was lit, the fire flickering, low presents stacked by the fireplace. Mom directed the gift exchange like she always did. "Lisa, give Caroline your gift," she said with a strange note in her voice. Lisa handed me a small package. I peeled back the paper and found a chipped mug with faded lettering, "World's Okayest Sister." I held it up. "Thanks." Jason gave me a $20 bookstore gift card. Mom and Gary's gift was a scarf that still smelled faintly of her perfume. When it was my turn, I passed out the gifts I'd brought one by one, each with care. Jason unwrapped the planner first. His fingers ran over the embossed initials. Lisa opened the earrings and blinked. "These match my wedding set," she said. "I remember," I said. Mom opened the voucher last. "Oh," she said, trying to smile. "That resort, we've always talked about going there." No one commented on the effort. No one asked why. After a pause, Lisa straightened in her seat. "We actually have something we need to talk to you about, Caroline," she said. Jason looked down. Mom picked up a tissue. Lisa continued. "We've been doing a lot of thinking about family dynamics and what's healthy, and we've come to a decision." I waited. "We had a vote," she said, "and we've decided that we need to step back from this relationship. You've become well controlling, especially with money. It's unhealthy. We need space to heal." Mom added softly, "It's not easy, but we think it's best. For all of us." Gary didn't speak. I looked at them, each of them, and then reached into my bag. I pulled out the red folder and placed it under the tree. No one moved. Lisa stared at it. "What is that?" "7 years of records," I said. "Everything I've paid, every promise made, every dollar tracked." Jason shifted. Lisa said, "You really kept track of all that." I opened the folder. "I brought copies for each of you," I said, "and a letter outlining what happens next." Mom's expression finally cracked. "You came here to do this, on Christmas. This is the last time," I said. "After today, everything changes." And I reached into the bag again, handing them each an envelope. No one reached for their envelope. They just sat there quiet now, holding their coffee cups like props. The garland on the mantel blinked softly, casting patterns on the hardwood. Jason cleared his throat first. "This feels extreme," he said. "I mean lawsuits over family matters." I opened the folder, pulled out the spreadsheet, held it at the top, and let it rest across my lap. "You want numbers?" I said. $253,842. That's how much I've contributed since I started working. Mortgage payments, car repairs, tuition, credit cards, groceries, flights, deposits, fees, everything you said you couldn't afford. Lisa shook her head slowly. "You kept a ledger." "I kept records," I said, "because after a while the stories didn't add up." I turned to Jason. "Let's start with you." I laid down the bank statement. March 15th, $20,000 wired directly to your account. You said it was for your business. You even printed me a payment schedule. He shifted on the couch. "That business didn't get off the ground. You never registered it with the state, and the investigator found the car parked at your friend's place, registered in your name, paid for with that exact amount." His mouth opened, then closed. I turned to Lisa. $35,000 for the wedding, $15,000 for what you said were medical emergencies. And then I saw the pictures. I placed down a photo of the main property, the wraparound porch, the title date circled. You bought a vacation home 3 days after telling me your house was on the verge of foreclosure. Her face flushed deep red. "You're unbelievable." I pulled out Mom's folder. This one hurt most. Mom was already holding her tissue, but her hands had stopped moving. I thought I was helping with utilities or house repairs. Then I found the casino records, loyalty statements, ATM withdrawals, over $40,000 in losses just last year. Gary leaned forward slightly. "Karen, is that true?" She didn't answer right away. "I had it under control," she whispered. I looked at her. "Did you?" Mom finally looked up at me. "You really went and hired someone to follow us around?" "I didn't need a spy," I said. "I needed clarity." I pulled out the last item, a small recorder. "I have a recording," I said. "From the Sunday I arrived early for dinner." Jason stiffened. Lisa looked away. I pressed play. Their voices filled the room, the clink of glasses, the laughter, phrases that had stayed with me. She's such an easy mark. Just say it's an emergency, and she writes the check. She lives alone in that little apartment. Wears the same stuff every year. To Caroline, our family bank. When the audio stopped, no one spoke. Gary looked from one to the other. "Did you really say those things?" Jason mumbled. "We were venting." Lisa folded her arms. "You don't get to record private conversations and act like you're the victim." "No," I said. "I'm just showing you what's already been true. You all said it out loud. I just listened." Mom sat back, the tissue crumpled in her hand. "So what happens now?" I looked at each of them. "You have 2 choices. You sign the repayment agreements, you go to therapy, and you show through action that you want to repair what's broken. Or I take this to court." "You'd take legal action against your own mother. You already voted me out of the family. I'm just following through." Jason leaned forward. "Let's be rational. We appreciate you. We just think maybe you've held it over our heads." "You called me a burden," I said. "A tool. A wallet with legs." Lisa's voice broke in. "You think this makes you better than us? At least we know how to live. All you do is work and keep score. I know how to give," I said. "For 7 years I gave. What I didn't know was how to stop." No one said anything. I reached into the folder, pulled out their copies of the repayment terms, and handed them out. "You have until New Year's Day. After that, we proceed legally." Mom looked down at her, lips pressed into a line. "What if we can't pay it all back? There are options based on income, community service, restitution through time or labor, but there has to be effort." Jason stared at the corner of his envelope. "And if we do all this," he asked, If we actually follow through, then maybe we can rebuild something healthy, something honest. Lisa rolled her eyes, but she didn't hand back the letter. I stood. The gifts I brought, those were real. No strings. I just wanted you to remember what it feels like to be given something without being used. I walked to the door, put my coat on slowly. As I reached for the handle, Jason's voice followed. Caroline just talked to us. Not like this. I paused, looked back one last time. The talking is done, I said. Now it's about what you choose to do next. And I stepped outside into the cold. The first few weeks after Christmas were loud in all the wrong ways. Voicemails, texts, emails. Some angry, some pleading, most trying to skip past the red folder like it hadn't happened. I didn't respond. My attorney did. Barbara sent formal letters confirming delivery of the repayment agreements and reminding them of the New Year's Day deadline. The tone was direct but fair. No threats, just facts. Then things got quiet. January came. No lawsuits were filed. Not because I backed down, but because they finally understood I wouldn't. Mom was the first to take a real step. 3 weeks after Christmas, I got a short message. I've enrolled in a program. First meeting is tonight. She didn't ask for anything. She just told me. I forwarded it to Barbara and marked the note in a new section of the red folder Accountability. Her counselor sent over verification, weekly sessions, full disclosure of finances, a second mortgage I hadn't known about, 2 additional credit cards. Her gambling had cost more than I'd ever imagined, over $200,000 lost in 5 years. Gary, once quiet in the background, gave her an ultimatum: recovery or separation. She chose the meetings. By February, she had taken a full-time teaching job again, not out of guilt, out of necessity. Jason sold the BMW. The check came through a few days later, partial repayment toward the business loan. He didn't say much, but I could see the shift. He enrolled in a vocational IT program in March. 3 months later, he landed a support role at a small tech firm. Steady hours, modest pay. But he showed up. He called once, not to ask for help, but to say, "It feels good to do something that's mine." Lisa took the longest. She paid the required amount, just enough to meet the legal terms, but she never apologized. She attended the therapy sessions, but she didn't participate much. At one point in April during a family session, she said, "I'm here, aren't I? Isn't that enough?" It wasn't. But we let it sit. Some things take longer to reach their shape. The legal work moved along. Barbara structured payment plans based on actual income. Community service options were set up for Mom in case of default. We documented everything. Paper trails for once-off payments. Therapy confirmations. No one defaulted. Meanwhile, I started living again. I bought a condo in Cambridge, 2 bedrooms, a small balcony, enough space for a writing desk, and a few potted plants. I joined a book club, signed up for a weekend hiking group. I started volunteering once a month for a financial literacy nonprofit teaching budgeting skills and how to recognize financial manipulation. That's where I met Michael. He was quiet at first, an architect with soft hands and easy eyes. We crossed paths at a fundraising event. He asked about the volunteer work. I told him the basics. He listened. We talked again the next week, and the one after that. Dr. Simmons asked me during one of our sessions what had changed most. "I don't feel responsible for everyone anymore," I said. "I know how to pause. I know how to say no." The therapy continued. Family sessions moved to monthly. Sometimes they were hard, sometimes nothing got solved. But there were moments. Jason once said, "I think I wanted your help because I didn't know how to ask for direction without sounding like I'd failed." Mom admitted during a quiet session, "I was ashamed of needing you." So I covered it in control. Lisa stayed on the edges, arms crossed, but she kept showing up. By June, we'd scheduled our first family meal together. Not therapy, not legal, just a meal. We chose a neutral restaurant downtown. Everyone would get their own bill. No assumptions, no obligations. I met with Dr. Simmons the day before. Nervous, she asked. Yes, I said, but not scared. We reviewed my plan. Arrive on time, stay for 90 minutes. No conversations about money or therapy unless someone else brings it up. No lingering past the check. No ride shares. No last-minute favors. She nodded. And your emotional boundaries. If someone crosses a line, I'll name it, I said. If it keeps happening, I'll leave. The next night, I put on a navy dress and flat shoes. I packed nothing but my wallet. I got there first. The restaurant was quiet, soft lighting, neutral music, a place that didn't invite drama. Jason arrived next, then Mom and Gary. Lisa came last. Everyone said hello. We sat. No one brought up the folder. We ordered. We ate. We asked about work, weather, traffic. Lisa complimented my necklace. Jason made a joke about how he still didn't know how to fold fitted sheets. Mom said she was taking an online course for teachers looking to retire early. It wasn't a breakthrough, but it was real. As we wrapped up, Mom looked at me and said, "Thank you for showing up." I nodded. That was enough. After the dinner ended, I walked out into the summer evening alone. The sky still held a bit of gold near the horizon, and the city hummed with that soft, in-between quiet you only hear just after sunset. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel angry. I just felt clear. 6 months earlier, I would have gone home wondering what everyone thought of me. I would have dissected every silence, every glance. But not now. Now I drove back to my own place, unlocked my own door, fed the new houseplant I'd finally remembered to water, sat out on the little balcony listening to the wind move through the trees on the next block. I hadn't heard from Lisa since that night. She'd left the dinner without much more than a nod, but she hadn't pushed back either. And sometimes just showing up is the most someone's ready to do. Jason texted a photo of his new work badge the next day. He'd hit 90 days on the job. It was the longest he'd ever stayed at one place. "Thanks for making me face it," he wrote. Mom kept going to her meetings. She sent me a message every Sunday evening after group. Short, usually just a line or two. Still clean. Rough week, but made it. Thinking of you today. And me, I kept building the life I'd put off for so long. Michael and I started seeing more of each other. Quiet dinners, long walks, slow weekends that didn't involve fixing anyone else's messes. I joined a second book club, taught another workshop, planted herbs on my kitchen windowsill. At one point, I pulled the red folder off the shelf and flipped it open. The documents were still there, neatly sorted. But I didn't need them anymore. Not to prove anything, not even to protect myself. So I emptied it. I filled it with new pages, letters to myself, journal entries from therapy, printed photos from the past few months. I tucked in a drawing a little girl at the nonprofit had given me, and a note Michael had left in my mailbox the week we met. The folder wasn't a case file anymore. It was a record of change. There's a strange freedom in learning that you can say no, in understanding that love, to mean anything at all, has to come with respect, that kindness doesn't mean surrender, and forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting what was done. My family didn't become perfect. I didn't expect them to. But I stopped waiting for their approval, and in doing that, I found something steadier than peace. I found permission to take up space in my own life. To anyone listening who's felt taken for granted, who's been told to be the strong one, the reliable one, the quiet giver, just know this: setting boundaries doesn't make you cold. It makes you honest. It makes you whole. Thank you for walking through this with me. If you've ever had to choose yourself after years of choosing others, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. And if this journey meant something to you, feel free to like or share so it can reach someone who needs it. Take care of your heart, and remember your worth was never measured by what you gave. It was always in who you are.